Hi, welcome to Misty's Math, your 9709 exam specialist. Now this video doesn't cost you anything, but perhaps for support, you can click the subscribe button.
Alright, hello. So this time we're going to discuss AS A-Level Mathematics 9709, Paper 1-1, which was from October-November 2024. And this paper is designed for you to answer within 1 hour and 50 minutes. Okay. As a start, I would like to discuss with you all the instructions to make sure that you understand how are you going to handle these questions. Alright, as an examiner who has been dealing with all answer scripts, I would want you to know that you are only allowed to use black or dark blue pen. For diagrams, please use pencil because you don't have any second diagram, so you need to use pencil that you can erase. Next, you are also not allowed to use erasable pen or correction fluid because these things may come off during transportation of your scripts. Okay? Do not write on any barcodes because that's how we read your scripts. Now, if you need additional space, you must use the line page at the end of the booklet. Right, at the end of the booklet, there will be an additional space for you. You can use that. And make sure that you write the question number or numbers if it is more than one, and it must be clearly shown. Okay, and you are allowed to use calculator wherever appropriate. Throughout the paper, you want to use calculator to add 1 plus 1 is fine. You can use that. And then you must show all necessary working. Even though if you find that 1 plus 1 equals to 2, you have to write that 1 plus 1. No marks will be given for unsupported answers from a calculator. So this is important because most of the times students thought that they are just needed to write the final answer. Is wrong. Final answer is just 1 mark. Okay, if the question is just 1 mark, it's fine for you to write just the final answer. But then if it is more than 1 mark, you must write your working because that provides the method mark. And then another part that is also important is that you must give an exact numerical answers to correct the 3 significant figures, not lower than that. More than that is fine. 3, 4, 5, 6 is fine, but not less than 3 significant figures. When it comes to angle in degrees, right? In degrees, it must be 1 decimal place. Okay, unless a different level of accuracy is specified in the question. So that's it. Those are all instructions that you need to be familiar with when you are working on this kind of paper. Right, let's start. In the expansion of kx plus 2 over x to the power of 4, where k is a positive constant, the term independent of x means that there is no x is equal to 150. The constant is 150. Find the value of k and hence determine the coefficient of x squared in the expansion. So first, you need to find out the value of k and then you need to determine the coefficient of x squared. You must show those 2 things in your answer. That must be part of the 4 marks over here. First of all, you must know that the term which is independent of x would happen when you have kx to the power of 2 being multiplied with 2 over x squared. When this happens, then you will be having x to the power of 2 to be multiplied with 1 over x squared, isn't it? From here, you will see that this is going to be 1 over x squared. Now this will be cancelled off. You don't have any x. That is going to be independent of x. Right? And when does this term going to happen? It is going to happen when you have, remember, your first term is going to be 4c0, second term will be 4c1, third term will be 4c2, and this would be having kx to the power of 0, and then you will be having the last one, which is 2 over x to the power of 4, right? You have to make sure that your power adds up to 4. Okay, so this is not going to be it. What about the second one? When you have 4c1, then you will be having kx power of 1 and then 2 over x power of 3. Now this is not what you are going to look at again. 4c2 is when you have kx squared multiplied with 2 over x power of 2. Okay, now that is what you wanted. So your coefficient will be 4c2. And bear in mind, when you expand this, you don't have any x. It's going to be independent of x. So 4c2 is 6. And then kx squared is just going to be k squared. X squared, I'll just write it there so you can see. And then 2 over x squared is going to be times with 4 over x squared. This is what I'm saying. Your x squared will be gone. So you will be having there 6 times 4 is 24k squared. 24k squared. And 24k squared from the question is equal to 150. Alright, you just need to equate there. And then you will figure that k squared is equals to 150 over 24. Therefore, k is equals to 5 over 2. You got the k. But don't stop there, because remember, you have the second part of the question that asks you to find out the coefficient of x squared. Now, looking at the arrangement, we look at this. When will you be having x squared? At this point, right, at this point, if you can see, this one is just 1. Your power of x will be 2 to the power of 4 over x to the power of 4. This is going to be to the power of x, negative 4, right? And this one is going to be x times with 1 over x cubed. What will you get there? You'll be getting x, 1 over x squared. You'll be getting 1 over x squared. Okay. Now this one is no x. So when are you going to come to coefficient of x squared in this sequence? You are going to come to the coefficient of x squared when you have kx cubed multiplied with 2 over x. Remember, the total power must be 4, right? 3 plus 1 is 4. And what will be your coefficient? So you see, as this is getting to number 3, your coefficient would be 4c3. Okay, that's going to be my answer over here. So 4c3 kx power of 3 multiplied with 2 over x. Now that would give me 4c3 is 4, and then I'll be having multiplied with k cubed x cubed multiplied with 2 over x. Now I want to show it to you that my x will become x squared. Okay, and therefore my numbers that I can multiply is 4 and 2. That's going to be 8 k cubed x squared. Now our k was 5 over 2. Therefore the coefficient of x squared would be 8 times 5 over 2 cubed, which is 125. Done with the first question. But I want you to know how this question is going to be marked, so that you will keep in mind on what are the important points you have to show on your paper, not just the final answer. First of all, your examiner would want to see that you come out with 6 here. 6 comes from just 4c2, but showing 4c2 is not enough. They want to see a numerical coefficient. Either you show that it is equal to 6 from your calculator, or you show that it is 4 factorial over 2 factorial times 2 factorial. Okay, obtaining 6kx squared times 2 over x squared, that would give you the first mark, method mark. And then when you gain k is 5 over 2, that is your answer mark, accuracy mark. Okay, next one, when you figure out for coefficient of x squared, then you will be having 4kx cubed times 2 over x. That is another one method mark. And final answer that you show the coefficient is 125. That is another accuracy mark. Total of 4 marks altogether. Alright, let's move forward. Question number 2. Question number 2 says that the curve y equals to x squared minus ax has a stationary point at negative 3b. Stationary points means that the derivative is equals to 0 because that's where it turns, right? It balances out. For example, like this is called a stationary point where the gradient of tangent at that point is equals to 0. So how do we figure this out? You take up the equations given to you, which is y equals to x squared minus a over x. I'd like to write it into a times x to the power of negative 1 so I can differentiate it better, easier. Okay, then what I do is I'll find dy over dx. In our situation here, then I'll be having 2x plus a x to the power of negative 2. Remember, when you differentiate, we are multiplying with the power, right? We are multiplying with the power in the front, and then the power will be subtracted by 1, will be reduced by 1. So you have that 2x, and then the power times with negative a, I have positive a, x to the power of negative 2. Now from here, I can equate that at point, okay, at point negative 3b, my dy dx would be equals to 0. Therefore, dy dx at that point exactly, which means my x is negative 3, my y is b, right? My x is negative 3, then I'll be having 2 times negative 3 plus a times negative 3 to the power of negative 2. Or I can rewrite this as to be, this is negative 6 plus a over negative 3 square. Okay, negative 3 square is just 9. So I'll be having 0 is negative 6 plus a over 9. You have to be careful with a and 9. They look much alike. Alright, so I have here 6 is equals to a over 9. Therefore, my a is equals to 6 times 9 equals to 54. I got my a. How about my b? Alright, once you know that your a is 54, means that you can rewrite your equation with the value of a that you have found, which is y equals to x squared minus 54 over x. Finding the value of b, you just need to substitute the coordinate given to you, which is b is happening when your x is negative 3 squared minus 54 over negative 3. Right, calculating this, you can simply get 9 plus 18, that is 27. Okay, done. And how is this question being marked? First of all, when you differentiate, this is an independent mark, b1. And then when you equate to 0, and then when you substitute that x is equals to negative 3, which for my question, I am getting it from here. That is when my dy dx equals to 0, and when I substitute negative 3, now then the mark will be here, my method mark. When I obtain that a is 54, and then b is 27. Those are altogether 4 marks. Right, next. Question number 3 is about sectors. It says there, the diagram shows a sector of a circle center O where OB is equal to OC, which is 15 centimeters. The size of angle BOC is 2 per 5 pi radians. Okay, and then point A and D on the lines OB and OC respectively are joined with an arc AD of a circle. So this is also an arc of a circle with center O. Okay. The shaded region is bounded by the arcs AD and BC and by the straight lines AB and BC. Yes, exactly. It is given that the area of the shaded region, now the area is 209 over 5 pi. Question asks you to find the perimeter. Obviously, for perimeter, you will be needing this length. Now we don't have that length because we don't have the radius of the smaller sector over there. Think about how can we equate to find out the radius of the smaller sector there. You can work out using the area given to you, which is, right, we have there 209 over 5 pi. Now this should be the area of the bigger sector to be subtracted with the area of the smaller sector. Now how do we figure out the area of the bigger sector? Remember that for area is just half r squared theta in radian. Okay, theta in radian. So it's just half the bigger sector. The radius is 15 square. Theta is 2 over 5 pi to be subtracted with the area of the smaller sector, which is half. Now the r is something that we don't know. Maybe I'll just write r square times theta is still the same. I'm sorry. Theta is still the same, which is 2 over 5 pi. If I would like to simplify, then I'll have my 2 to be crossed out. Then I don't have any half. My angle would be 1 over 5 pi. And then if your task is just to figure out the r, you can see here that r is your unknown that you want to find. This is just a value and this is also another value. Okay, so if I put my r on one side, then I'll be having r squared times 1 over 5 pi is equal to 15 squared times 1 over 5 pi minus 209 over 5 pi. Okay. And then if I want to get rid of 1 over 5 pi, it's just r squared equals to, this is just 5 over pi over 5 then, times with everything that I have there, 15 squared 1 over 5 pi minus 209 over 5 pi. Okay, you can see that this part will be cancelled off. This will be cancelled off. This will be cancelled off. Okay. And therefore, my simplified answer would be 15 squared minus 209. Remember, we are not looking for r squared. Radius is going to be the square root of that, which is 16. That gives me an answer of radius is equals to 4. This is the radius of the smaller sector. Do not stop there. This is 4. Do not stop there because the question is asking you to find out the perimeter. Now, how do you find out the perimeter? In order for you to find out the perimeter, you will be needing the smaller arc and the larger arc. And then plus with this length, which is 15 minus 4, 11, and this one is also 11. So perimeter, then I'll be having formula for arc length is just S equals to r theta. Okay, so you'll be having the radius of the bigger sector is 15 and theta is 2 over 5 pi, plus with the radius of the smaller sector is 4 times 2 over 5 pi, plus with the length of the sides, which is 11 plus another 11. Computing this, you should be having 22 plus 38 over 5 pi. Okay, and that's it. Remember, the question is asking you to write it in terms of pi. Do not skip this part. Okay, do not skip this part. If let's say you accidentally work out with decimal numbers without writing this, you won't be getting the last mark. Okay, let's go through first. How is this question going to be marked? First, if you are using the sector area formula, you are going to get the first mark, that is M1. And then as you write this fully correct, right, as you write this part fully correct, equating to 209/5 pi, that is an accuracy mark. Obtaining that your radius of the smallest sector is 4, that is another A mark. And then as you use the correct arc length formula twice, this and that, you are going to get M1. You write your final answer in terms of pi, you will be getting another A1. Let's say after you get the answer in terms of pi, you figure out the answer in decimals and you write here. Well, at least your examiners can use ISW. But let's say you forgot about this. You type into your calculator, you figured that it's 22 plus 38/5 pi, and then you quickly convert it into a decimal, and then you miss this part, you just write the decimal answer, then you will be missing this mark. Okay, the total mark that you can receive is only 4 marks. So pay attention to the question on what they are asking specifically. Let's move on to question number 4. You have here the curve with equation x squared minus 3xy minus 4 equals to 0. You have to show that the curve and the line with equation 3x plus y plus k equals to 0, it meet for all values of constant k. It meet means that, okay, if this is your curve, and this is the line, for all values of k, it must be between this line, right? It must be within this range. So let's see. Now remember that within this range means that your b squared minus 4ac, it must always be more than 0. Okay, at least more than or equals to, because equals to means it's just at the tip here. It only touch at one point. Alright, now in order for you to compare with b squared minus 4ac, you have to ensure your equations are equated together. You have your x squared minus 3xy minus 40 equals to 0. The second equation is 3x plus y plus k equals to 0. Therefore, your y is simply negative 3x minus k. If you substitute the y into this equation, then you will be having x squared minus 3x times negative 3x minus k minus 40 equals to 0. Okay, then expanding this, you should have x squared plus 9x squared plus 3kx minus 40 is equals to 0. Simplifying, then you will be having 10x squared plus 3kx minus 40 equals to 0. From here, pick up your A, B, and C's. I would always like to write it on separate notes so I see exactly what is my A, B, and C. So my A is 10, my B is 3k, my C is negative 40. You have to remember that at this point when you write out your A, B, and C's, you should not be having any x. And none of the x should be there. Okay, because we are only pulling out the coefficients. Once you get that, putting it into b squared minus 4ac, then you will be having 3k squared minus 4 times 10 times negative 40. Finding the value of this, you should be having 9k squared plus 1600. Now at this point, you should have make a conclusion that for whatever the value of k, even if k is negative when you square it, you will be having a positive answer. For whatever value of k, your b squared minus 4ac will always be bigger than 0. Okay, so then you can make a conclusion that for all value of k, for any value of k, the line will always meet the curve. Okay, therefore line will always meet the curve. Now, how do you get marked for this question? First, when you substitute your y, this is your first mark, M1. When you are able to write into a quadratic equation, you get an accuracy mark. This is your A1. Attempt at b squared minus 4ac, you are going to get another M mark. And then getting 9k squared plus 1600, that's an A mark. Telling that it is more than 0 is your last mark. So don't stop until 9k squared plus 1600, because the question is asking you to show that. You have to show. How do you show? You figure it out, and then you say that for any value of k, it is always be more than 0. That's how you get the full mark. Right, let's move on. Question number 5. The equation of a curve is such that dy over dx is equal to 4x minus 3 third x plus 1. Find the x-coordinate of the point of the curve at which the gradient is 11 over 2. The gradient is 11 over 2 means that the dy over dx is equals to 11 over 2. You can simply equate this into the equation because this is already given to you in terms of dy over dx. You can simply equate 11 over 2 is equals to 4x minus 3 third x plus 1. Now, if you're not familiar with this kind of form, you can substitute. Let's say u is equals to third x. Your equation then will be 11 over 2 is equal to, now see, if your u is third x, then x would be u square, isn't it? You are squaring it. Now it will be 4u square minus 3u plus 1. Now maybe this is a form that you are much more familiar with. It's called as quadratic equation. You just need to solve this. You're going to write 4u square minus 3u plus 1 minus 11 over 2 equals 0. This part here, you will be getting minus 9 over 2 equals 0. Then you can factorize this into 4u plus 3 and 2u minus 3. Okay, in that sense, then you will be having first u is equals to negative 3 over 4. Your second u is positive 3 over 2. And for your third x is negative 3 over 4, or third x is 3 over 2, which then therefore your x is 9 over 16 or 9 over 4. Okay, how do you get marked for this? First mark is when you are able to attempt into a quadratic equation and when you are able to attempt to solve it. So this is your first M1. Second mark is when you are able to write up your third x. This is A1. And then getting a final answer of 9 over 16, 9 over 4. Even though this one will be ignored, it's fine. You'll be getting A1. Okay, that's a total of 3 marks. Now let's move on to question B. It says that given that the curve passes through the point 411, find the equation of the curve. So the curve, it passes through point 411. Why do they tell you this? Because you are having an equation of the derivative. You have to integrate to get into the equation of the curve, right? So you are supposed to integrate 4x minus 3 third x plus 1 with respect to x. Now I would like to rewrite my third x into x to the power of half, because that's easier for me to see what is the power when I integrate later. Now integrating this, you should be having 4x squared divided by 2. Remember what happens when you integrate? you are going to increase the power by 1. So initially it was 1 plus 1, that's going to be 2, and then you divide with the power itself. Now what happens with negative 3x to the power of half? You'll be having minus 3x. Half plus 1 is 3 over 2. Then we divide again by 3 over 2. Now 1 would be x. X power of 1 divided by 1 is just x. And then you have a constant c. Okay, constant c is just a number. How do you find out the constant? We're going to use the point given to you. Simplifying this equation, you should be having 2x squared minus 2x to the power of 3 over 2 plus x plus c. Substituting that this is happening when y is 11 and x is equals to 4. So y is 11 to x equals to 4, 3 over 2 plus 4 plus c. You should be getting that c is equals to negative 9. Therefore, your final answer, the equation is y equals to 2x squared minus 2x to the power of 3 over 2 plus x minus 9. How do you get mark for this kind of question? You'll get the first mark when you integrate. Okay, when you integrate, no matter what constant it is, as long as they see that you have x power of 2, as long as they see that you have x to the power of 3 over 2 and x over here, you will be getting m1, right? And then if you are able to write the exact constant for x squared, for x to the power of 3 over 2 and x, you will be getting a1. Next mark is when you substitute the point of 4, 11, m1, and a1 is for the last line here, which is the equation of the curve. That's all 4 marks. Let's move on to question number 6. Question number 6, you have two circles, C1 and C2. This is the first equation. This is the second equation of the circle. Now, first equation of the circle, it is not obvious what is the center and what is the radius. But the second equation, I think it's quite obvious what is the center and radius. You need to remember that the equation of a circle is given by x minus a squared plus y minus b squared equals to r squared, which then the center is going to be AB, the radius is going to be R. Okay, so means that from this equation, our center is at 9, negative 4, and the radius is square root of 64, that is 8. Okay. First question is asking you to find out the distance between the centers of the circle. You got the center of the second circle, but you haven't got the center of the first circle. Now, how do you do that? What you have to do is you have to collect all the similar unknowns together because you're going to complete the square. So I'll be writing x squared plus 6x, and then y would be y squared minus 10y plus 18 equals to 0. Completing the square for x, then you will be having x plus 3 squared, and then I'll be subtracting 9. What about y? Y would be y minus 5 squared, and then you will be subtracting 25, the square of negative 5, and then you have plus 18 equals to 0. Now if you rewrite into the general form, you will be having x plus 3 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals to 16. Okay, minus 9 minus 25 plus 18. That is negative 16. We move it to the other side, then you will be having positive 16. Means that the center of this circle is at negative 3, 5, and the radius is at 4. Alright, 4 units. Question asks you to find out the distance. The distance is basically square root of x1 minus x2, which is negative 3 minus 9 and then you square plus 5 minus negative 4 square. Okay, this is just a calculator work. You would be able to find that this is equals to 15. How do you get marked for this question? You'll get marked when you imply that the center is negative 3, 5 for the first one. This is B1, independent mark. And then if you imply that the center of the second circle is 9, negative 4, this is another independent mark. And then if you attempt with a correct process of finding distance, that is an M1, and then final answer is A1 when you get 15. That's all 4 marks. And then question B. P and Q are points on C1 and C2 respectively. The distance between P and Q is denoted by D. Find the greatest and least possible values of D. This is the situation. Alright. Perhaps this is your circle 1, this is your circle 2. This is your center. And you said earlier that the distance of the center was 15 units, right? Now PQ are points on C1 and C2 respectively. Okay, I know my circles are not that good, but it's fine. What you need to know that is the radius of the first circle. What is the radius of the first circle? You got 4. The radius of the first circle is 4. The radius of the second circle is 8. Right, now 8 plus 4 is just 12. Means that there are 3 units here. 8, 4, and then 3 units in the middle. What is going to be the furthest distance? Furthest distance means that it's at the very end over here. I use another color. It's the very end over here and the very end over here. Okay, and what would be that distance? It's going to be 15 plus another 4 plus another 8. Okay, greatest is when you have 15 plus 4 plus 8. That is equals to 27. And the least is going to be when they are at this point. Right, at this point, which means they are just 3 units, right? But I'd suggest you to write out the full calculation here, which is 15 minus 4 minus 8. That is equals to 3. How do you get marks? You will get mark. First mark is when you write down the radius is 4 and 8. That is first independent mark. Second independent mark is when you obtain one of these. Either you obtain the greatest or when you obtain the least. Okay, and then the last mark when you obtain both. Okay, means that the second one. That's 3 marks. Next question, number 7. The diagram shows part of the curve with equation y equals to 12 over cube root of 2x plus 1. Okay, and then the point A on the curve has coordinates 7 over 2, 6. This is 7 over 2, 6. I'd like to write it myself, so I could be clear about what the question wants me to do with the diagram. Find the equation of the tangent to the curve at A. Right? Equation of the tangent. Tangent is going to be just a straight line. Means that you have to write it in terms y equals to mx plus c, which means you will need to find out the gradient. Okay, how do you find the gradient? You are finding the gradient, if you can recall, it is by differentiating the equation. You have here y equals to 12 over cube root of 2x plus 1, right? And I would like to write this as 12 times 2x plus 1 to the power of negative 3. Sorry, negative 1 over 3. Okay, negative 1 over 3. Because it's at the denominator and because it's a root of 3. Root of 3 is 1 per 3. Okay, next step, I would be differentiating that equation. Finding dy over dx is simply 12 is a constant, and then again you multiply with the power, which is negative 1 over 3, and then you differentiate the one inside the bracket, which is 2, and then you rewrite whatever you have in the bracket. The power would be minus 1, so you'll be having minus 4 over 3. Okay, simplifying this, you can divide 3. You can divide 12 and 3 here. You'll be having 4 times 2. So you have negative 8 2x plus 1 to the power of negative 4 over 3. Finding out the gradient at exact point means that you have to substitute. That is when x is equal to 7 over 2. When x is equal to 7 over 2, your derivatives of your gradient is equals to negative 8 times by 2 times 7 over 2 plus 1 to the power of negative 4 over 3, which should give you negative half. Okay, now that is not yet an equation, that's just a gradient. How do you work out on the equation? Equation is just y minus y1, in this situation is 6, equals to m x minus x1, which is 7 over 2. Again, y minus y1 equals to m x minus x1. Okay, once you write this, you are actually done. How do you get marked for this kind of question? You will get the first mark when you differentiate and obtain something with a power of negative 4 over 3. This is the first mark. It doesn't matter what are these constants you get, as long as it has a value and not 0. And then when you exactly or correctly gain negative 8 2x plus 1 to the power of negative 4 over 3, that's your first A mark. And then substituting the value of 7 over 2, you will be getting your M1. Getting an equation of a straight line, that's going to give you the last A1. Altogether, it's 4 marks. Okay, next, find the area of the region bounded by the curve and the lines x0, y0, x7 over 2. x0 is here, this is x0, y0 is your x-axis, x equals to 7 over 2 is here, and the curve means that this is the area that you are required to find. And that is the area under the graph which is bounded when x is 0 to 7 over 2. Means that it is simply an integration of the curve, which is 12 to x plus 1 to the power of negative 1/3, bounded with x equals to 0, 7 over 2 with respect to x. Okay, now first step is a normal integration. How do you integrate something that is in this form? So you should have the constant is 12, and then 2x plus 1. Remember what will happen to the power? It will be added by 1. So negative 1/3 plus 3/3, that is 2 over 3. You are going to divide this, remember, with the power itself, which is 2 over 3, and also the derivative of the one in the bracket. So you should divide it again by 2. Okay, remember the limit is going to be from 0 to 7 over 2. As you simplify, then you should be having 9 2x plus 1 power of 2 over 3 with a limit of 0 to 7 over 2. Substituting all this value, remember how to do this? You're going to substitute 7 over 2, so we'll be having 9 2 times 7 over 2 plus 1 power of 2 over 3 to be subtracted with 9 times 2 times 0 plus 1 to the power of 2 over 3. Should be getting final answer equals to 27 square units. Okay, and how do you get marked for this? First is when you are able to find this part correctly, no matter what are your constants, as long as you have 2x plus 1 to the power of 2 over 3. That's the first M1. And then if you get it correctly with your coefficient to be 9, then you will be having AU1. When your limits are correct, you will be having M1. And then obtaining final answer as 27, you will be having final A mark. Let's move on. Question number 8. Question number 8a. It is given that beta is an angle between 90 and 180 such that sine beta is equals to A. Now sine beta, I need to show you this, okay? I'm drawing it this way because if it is between 90 to 180, means that it's on the second quadrant. This is our first quadrant, this is our second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. And beta is this angle, okay? And sine beta, which is going to be the same as the acute angle, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, means that it must be this is A and that is 1 by ratio. Okay, by ratio it is A and 1. If you were expressing tangent squared beta minus 3 sine beta cos beta in terms of A, let's see what you can simplify. First of all, you should know that tangent squared beta is equal to, tangent is simply sine over cos, right? So it is sine squared beta over cos squared beta. And then if you put it into the equation that you were given, this is simply sine squared beta over cos squared beta minus 3 sine beta cos beta. From the diagram that I gave you over here, you should see that opposite of the angle is A, the hypotenuse is 1. What would be the adjacent? We would need the adjacent because if this is your theta, then cos beta is adjacent over hypotenuse. How do you find the adjacent? The adjacent is just 1 squared minus A square. Don't forget to square it that. So this part is just square root of 1 minus A square. Okay, square root of 1 minus A square. So sine squared beta over cos squared beta is going to be A square over, now cos for obtuse, you have to remember that cos for obtuse angle is always negative, and cos is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, so negative square root of 1 minus A square over 1, right? I can avoid using 1, it's fine, okay, because anything divided by 1 is just itself. So then it's going to be sine squared beta is A squared, cos squared beta is 1 minus A squared minus 3 sine beta is A times by negative square root 1 minus A square. Simplifying this, you should be getting A square over 1 minus A square. I don't think you can simplify there, plus 3A square root of 1 minus A square. And done. How do you get mark? First mark is when you are using tangent squared beta is equal to sine squared over cos squared beta. This is B1, independent mark 1. And then as you are able to figure that cos beta is negative of 1 minus A square square root, that's your second B1. The third mark is when you are able to put them all together. Okay, that's 3 marks altogether. Next, question B. You have here equation sine squared theta plus 2 cos squared theta equals to 4 sine theta plus 3. What you have to do is, you have to rewrite this into just a constant trigonometric ratio. For example, the original equation you have here, you have sine and also you have cos, right? So how do you convert this cos into sine? You just need to remember that the identity of trigonometric ratio, you have there sine squared theta plus cos squared theta is equals to 1. Therefore, if you rewrite this just into sine, then you will be having sine squared theta plus 2 times 1 minus sine squared theta. That is equal to 4 sine theta plus 3. Expanding this, then you will be having sine squared theta plus 2 minus 2 sine squared theta equals to 4 sine theta plus 3. Sine squared theta minus 2 sine squared theta, you can operate that out. You will be having negative sine squared theta minus, I'll bring it to this side, so you'll have minus 4 sine theta plus 2 minus 3, that's minus 1. Alright, again, plus 2 minus 3, that's going to be minus 1 equals to 0. Now this form, if you couldn't see, you can substitute sine theta into u, then you will be having negative u square minus 4u minus 1 equals to 0, or if you turn it into positive, then you will be having u square plus 4u plus 1. This is a quadratic form. As usual, quadratic form, if you are unable to factorize, then you have to use quadratic formula. I'd like to plug it out. My a in this situation is 1, coefficient of u square is 1. My b is 4, and my c is 1. Therefore, if I apply the quadratic formula, u would be minus 4 negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, that is 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1 over 2a over 2. Therefore, you will be getting that it is equals to negative 4 plus minus square root of 12 over 2. So solving into sine theta is equal to negative 4 plus minus square root of 12 over 2. This is a negative value. A negative value of sine, as you can recall, first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. On the first quadrant, all values are positive. Second quadrant, sine is positive. Third quadrant, tangent is positive, and fourth quadrant, cosine is positive. Add sugar to coffee. Therefore, when your sine value is negative, you need to know that your angle is located here on the third and on the fourth quadrant. So this is your theta. Alright, this is your theta. When you are finding the angle later on, it's going to be from 0, this is your 0 degrees, counterclockwise up until this angle. And again, from 0 degrees counterclockwise up until this part. For example, theta that we got here, it is 15.5. Therefore, our first angle is going to be, so this is 15.5. It must be 180 plus 15.5, which is 195.5. Second angle is, if this is 15.5, then it must be 360 minus 15.5. That is 344.5. Those are two values that stays within the range of 0 up until 360. And how do you get mark on this question? You'll get the first mark when you use the identity and then you have up until a 3-term quadratic equation. So your examiner will see that, okay, you have a 3-term and then you use this. you'll be getting the first mark here. And then you also obtain up until sine squared theta plus 4 sine theta plus 1. You are just having a negative side of it. It's fine. You still get a1. They are equivalent. And then attempt to solve a quadratic equation. So this is what I mean. You have to show that you are using the formula, because this is an M1 mark. If you don't show this and you are just showing that you are getting 195.5 and 344.5, you are not going to get full A mark. Alright? Because it would be depending on your M mark over here. At least they want to see this part. So once you get it into a calculator in the form of -4 plus minus 12/2, you come up into an answer of theta is 195.5 and 344.5. This is A1 and another A1. So 5 marks altogether. Next question. The equation of the curve is y equals to 4 plus 5x plus 6x squared minus 3x cubed. Find the set of values of x for which y decreases as x increases. How does it look? Y decreases as x increases. Let me show you. On a Cartesian plane, going towards the right, going towards the right, this is when your x is increasing. Your x is increasing. And on the y-axis, going up, going up, this is when your y is increasing. Now, as it says, y decreases as x increases, you are expecting something that looks like this. Alright, your gradient would be negative. Because if it is like this, you see, x increases, y increases. This one, x increases, but y decreases. Can you see that? So we are looking for something that looks like this. And your curve is a cubic. Means that there are only two ways on how cubic would look like. Either this or that. Okay. Now the hint is you have to look at the coefficient of x cubed. Since this is negative, you are expecting to see something like this. This is when I'm telling my students that this is when you are expecting that overall gradient would be negative. And this part, you are seeing that it's kind of like having a positive gradient, right? So this is when your coefficient of x cubed is positive. This is when the coefficient of x cubed is negative, right? This is how you are expected to be. Now, the point where y decreases as x increases, where is it? Okay, you've seen that it's going to be like this. So you are expecting to see this part and this part. They want to see this range. You need to find out what is this point towards the right, when x is more than what, and you have to find this point. So you can write that it is happening when x is less than a number. Now, how do we find these 2 points, these two peak, maximum and minimum? They are called as stationary point. If you can recall on our previous question, what did we say about stationary point? Stationary points are points that have the derivative equals to 0. Right? So means that you are supposed to attempt on the equation, which is y equals to 4 plus 5x plus 6x squared minus 3x cubed. Find out the derivatives. 4 differentiate is equals to 0, 5x is 5, 6x squared is 12x, and then you have your negative 9x squared, right? That's a derivative. And remember, it is happening when your derivative is equals to 0, so you are basically having negative 9x squared plus 12x plus 5 is equal to 0. This is just a quadratic equation, right? And therefore, if you try to factorize this, you will be having 3x plus 1, and then 3x minus 5 is equal to 0. Therefore, you are having two values, that is, it is happening when x is equals to negative half and also 5 over 3. Please show your factorization, right, if it's possible. If it's not possible, then use quadratic formula. From these two values, you should know that the minimum point here is where it is -half, maximum point is where it is 5 over 3. Now the range where y decreases as x increases must be when your x is less than -1/3 and when your x is more than 5/3. Okay, so that's it. And how do you get marked for this kind of question? You will get your first mark when you did your differentiation. This is independent mark B1. And then when you attempt to find two critical values by solving quadratic equation, right? When you attempt on it, this is going to be your M1. Obtaining those two values, you are going to have your A1, and then writing the correct range, that is your final A1. Okay, altogether 4 marks. All right, next. It says here, it is given that y equals to 9x plus k is a tangent to the curve. Remember that a tangent, yes, it is just a straight line. And the gradient, how do we get the gradient of a tangent? The gradient of a tangent is basically the dy over dx at one exact point, right? So your equation earlier was y equals to 4 plus 5x plus 6x squared minus 3x cubed. Remember that you are going to find out the gradient of this line. So derivative dy over dx is going to be, again, it's just 5 plus 12x minus 9x squared. And it's given to you that the gradient of this tangent is 9. Remember, in the form of y equals to mx plus c, your m is the gradient. So basically this is equals to 9. The gradient is 9. You're going to have another quadratic equation that you can write into 9x squared minus 12x plus 4 equals to 0. That you can factorize this into 3x minus 2 squared is equals to 0. It is a perfect square, which means your solution is just x equals to 2 over 3, right? You know that it is happening when your x is equals to 2 over 3. Now, how are you going to find what is the y? Because if you are using your straight line, which is y equals to 9x plus k, you are saying that you want to find out y, but you still haven't found k. So the only option is to reuse your first equation. You need to understand that this is happening when they are meeting at one point. So they are meeting at one point, at one exact point, and they are sharing the point together. So to find out the y, you just have to substitute x equals to 2 over 3 into your original equation. So y would be 4 plus 5 times 2 over 3 plus 6, 2 over 3 square minus 3, 2 over 3 cube. You should get there 82 over 9. Okay, you should get 82 over 9. Once you get that y is 82 over 9, then you know they are the tangent of the curve at point of 2 over 3 comma 82 over 9. What do you have to do next? You just have to substitute this coordinate into y equals to 9x plus k. And I'm not going to do that for you. Please tell me that you get k equals to 28 over 9. How do you get marked for this? You'll get the first mark when you find the first derivative and you equate that into 9. That is your first M1. And then when you obtain that x is equals to 2 over 3, that's your first A1. And then when you use your x value to find out the value of k, this is basically here that when you substitute, I'm telling you that you have to show all the working. So part of the mark is going to be the substitution where you do thing that I didn't do for you, which is this. Okay, and then you get that k is equal to 28 over 9. This one is your M mark, this is your A mark. See, if I did not do this part on my paper and I just quickly use calculator, figure out that k is 28 over 9, I might be missing this mark and that mark, because remember that A marks is dependent on your M marks. You don't get M marks, you cannot get the A mark. Okay, so please write your entire working. Okay, next question. You have an arithmetic progression of first term 5 and common difference D, where D is more than 0. The second, fifth, and 11th terms of the arithmetic progression in that order are the first 3 terms of geometric progression. So, if you consider first the arithmetic progression, you have 5 as your first term. What is your second term? Your second term would be 5 plus D. Your third term would be 5 plus 2D, and so on. What about on your geometric progression? It says that the second, fifth, and 11th, the second term from the AP is going to be 5 plus D. What is going to be the second term of the geometric progression, which is the fifth? So you're expecting to see 5 plus 4D, right? And then the 11th term would be 5 plus 10D. Question asks you to find the value of D. Now, in order for you to find the value of D, you have to make use of the idea from geometric progression, because geometric progression, you know that they are moving with a constant R, right? This is times R, this is times R. Means that 5 plus 10D over 5 plus 4D, the term before that, it must be equal to 5 plus 4D over the term before that, which is 5 plus D, which is equals to R. Okay, but we don't want to find R at this moment. I'm just telling you because basically that is R. R is the ratio of the second divided by the first one. Now, if you try to solve this, then you will be having 5 plus 10D to be multiplied with 5 plus D should equals to 5 plus 4D squared. Alright, solving this into a quadratic equation, you should be having that D is equals to 2.5. How do you get mark on this question? You'll get the first mark when you state or imply the first 3 terms of a geometric progression. So when you write this is an independent mark B1. Second mark is when you form an equation. Okay, it's either this or this. That's going to be your M1. And then final A mark is when you are able to write that D is equals to 2.5. Okay, next question. The sum of the first 77 terms of arithmetic progression is denoted by S77. The sum of the first 10 terms of geometric progression is denoted by G10. Find the value of S77 minus G10. So in this kind of question, remember that they are different progressions, right? The first one here is AP. The second one here is GP. So they are not using the same equation for summation of terms. Let's recall our AP, the A is 5 and the D was 2.5. Our GP, our A, right. Now since D is 2.5, our A would be 5 plus 2.5, that's 7.5. And our R would be, okay, if the first one is 7.5, the second one would be 5 plus 10, that is 15. Means that 15 over 7.5, that's 2. Okay, the R is 2, the ratio is 2. In order for you to find out S77 to be subtracted with G10, summation up until 77 of an AP would be 77 over 2 times 2a, which is 10. 2 times 5 is 10. Plus 77 minus 1, which is 76, times the d, 2.5. That's the formula. And then you are subtracting this with the summation of the first 10 terms of the geometric progression. Geometric progression is a 7.5 times 1 minus r to the power of n, 2 to the power of 10, over 1 minus r, 1 minus 2. Okay, now this one is just calculator work. You should be getting 27.5. How do you get marks on this kind of question? This is 5 marks altogether. Can you get all 5 marks writing this little thing on your paper? Let's see. First mark is when you use the correct formula for sum of AP with your value of D. So if you are using correct D and your formula is correct, you will be getting your first M mark. Next mark is when you obtain or imply you get 7700, which is, yes, implied by all your numbers over here. This is 7700. This is also an A1. And then the third mark is when you state or imply GP. When you state or imply your geometric progression is having a sequence of 7.5 and with a ratio of 2. This is an independent mark, B1. And then when you use the correct formula for sum of GP with a common ratio, this is method 1. And then the final mark is when you have 27.5. So yes, those are the 5 marks. Okay. Alright, next question. The function f is defined by fx is equal to 3 plus 6x minus 2x squared, for x is real numbers. Question A, express fx in the form of a minus bx minus c squared, where a, b, c's are constants, and state the range of f. There are 2 ways on how you can do this kind of question. One of it is by expanding this and then you compare what are your a, b, and c's with the original equation. Sometimes my students prefer that, but my preference, I would like to complete the square. So we have here 3 plus 6x minus 2x squared. I'm telling you that in completing the square, you have to look at your x's. Okay, that's going to be the contributor for your completed square. You still have 3 there. As you can see, you are going to factor out something, so your x would be alone. So means that you should not be having a coefficient of -2 over there. You are going to have -2 to be factored out, and then you have minus 3x plus x squared. Okay, let's check. If you try to expand this, -2 times -3x, you get positive 6x, yes. And then -2 times x squared is -2x squared, yep. Then the next part is completing the square. 3 minus 2, I'll be rewriting this into x squared minus 3x, yeah. How do you complete the square? You're going to divide this. Remember, it's going to be b over 2. You're going to divide it by 2. So 3 minus 2 x squared minus 3 over 2 square, right? That is completed, but since there is a remaining of 9 over 4, you have to subtract this because when you completed the square, you have accidentally included 9 over 4 inside this. Let me explain that a bit. Let's try to expand, yeah? When you have, sorry, I shouldn't be having square there, right? When you have x minus 3 over 2 square, when you expand this, you will be having x squared minus 3x, and then you will be having plus 9 over 4. You see, this part here has been an excess on your completed square. That's why you have to subtract it back. Okay, that's why you have to subtract it back. And all these are within your factorized 2. Now, in order for you to take this out and compute with your single number 3 over here, you will be having 3 to be subtracted with -2 times -9/4. So we'll be having positive 9/2. Okay, and then you have -2 x minus 3/2 square. This would be 15/2 minus 2 x minus 3/2 square. Comparing to the form that the question is giving, then your A would be, you can just write it here. Your A would be 15/2. Your B is -2. Your B is 2 because it's minus B over there. So B is +2. And your C is 3/2. Right? Remember that because this is -C, then you ignore the negative sign over here. It's just 3/2. Next, the question is also asking you to state the range of f. If you have this kind of equation, you are expecting your graph would open downwards because the coefficient of x squared is negative, right? It would open downwards, and the maximum point over here is, you take it from here, the negative of this would be positive 3/2, and then the y will be the one without x, which is 15/2. That's what you are expecting from the graph. The range would mean that your graph is always lesser than or equals to 15/2. So your answer, final answer for the range would be fx would be less than or equals to 15/2. How do you get mark on this kind of question? It's just 3 marks. First mark is when you obtain that B is 2 and C is 3/2. Okay, once you get these two things, you will be getting the first independent mark. When you get all 3 correct, you get a second independent mark, another B. And then when you write that the range would be lesser than or equals to 15/2, you will get the last independent mark, B1. What will happen if you write this as fx less than 15/2 without an equal sign? Unfortunately, you won't be getting any mark, right? Because it is including 15/2. 15/2 is the maximum point, so you have to include them, right? So this is no B mark. Next, question B. Says here the graph of y equals to fx is transformed to the graph of y equals to hx by a reflection in one of the axes followed by translation. So it started with a reflection and then a translation. It is given that the graph of y equals to hx has a minimum point at the origin. Has a minimum point at the origin means that this is a minimum point graph. It's going to open upwards, and this point is at the origin. Initially, your graph was like this, where the maximum point is at 3/2, 15/2. Means that it's somewhere here. Okay, 3/2, 15/2. Now, what transformation would make it flip? It must be a reflection where? Is it on the y-axis or on the x-axis? It must be on the x-axis. Y-axis would make it flip. Instead of here, it's going to be here. Okay, it flips on the y-axis at this part. Okay, but that's not our situation. So first thing, the reflection, it must be a reflection on x-axis. Okay, that's obvious. A reflection on this would mean that your graph, instead of graph of a maximum point like this, it's going to turn into graph of a minimum point in which your y will be reflected. So it's still at 3/2 on the x, but your y would be at negative 15 over 2. Okay, and your graph would look like this. Now, a translation that happens, you see, from positive 3 over 2, it goes into 0, means that it must be left side. So it's negative 3 over 2. Okay, it shifted 3 over 2 units left side. And then what about the y? From negative 15 over 2, it goes up into 0. So it will be positive 15 per 2 on the y direction. Okay. Now how do you get mark on this? Your first mark is when you state that this is a reflection on the x-axis, independent mark 1. And then the second one is a translation, fully translation. Okay, fully written translation. Next, the function g is defined by gx equals to 3 plus 6x minus 2x squared for x is less than or equal to 0. If you can see, this is still the same function, but it is limited for x is less than or equal to 0. If you remember, it is the graph of maximum point where this is at 3 over 2 and 15 over 2, isn't it? But the maximum is at 3 over 2. Since it is just less than or equal to 0, you should just draw something. You should just draw something from here. Alright, from here. This is the cutting line. Okay? And you can just erase that. Okay, I'll take small eraser. Let me just redraw that. Okay, actually you have this point here, but that doesn't matter. Alright, because they just want you to sketch for x less than or equals to 0. This is going to be your graph. This is your x, this is your y, or gx. This is your gx. Okay. Explain why g is one-to-one function. You are not required to find the coordinates of any intersection with the axis. Why is it one-to-one? Because this is just 1x to 1y. Alright, only. You can see that the reflected part, it has been eliminated once they set the limit as x less than or equals to 0. How do you get mark on this? You will get the first mark when you sketch the correct graph. It must be appearing in second and third quadrant only. This is your second quadrant and this is your third quadrant, and this is your B1. Second mark is when you state that each y value is associated with a single x value. Yes, this is your second mark. So that is 2 marks. Question D, sketch the graph of y equals to g inverse on your diagram and find an expression for g inverse x. You should label 2 graphs in your diagram appropriately and show an irrelevant mirror line. So let's label that this is to answer, this is gx. Okay, this is gx. Now in order for us to do question D, you need to know that it must be reflecting on y equals to x. Let's make the line. Y equals to x is just a diagonal, and whatever point this one is, it's going to be the same point here. Alright, let's just make it almost the same. And you're expecting to have something like that. Alright, it's fine if it cuts your wording, as long as it's still in your paper. Okay, and you should label that this is line y equals to x and this is the graph of g inverse x. But it's not yet done because the question is also asking you to find the expression. The expression means that you should just take that this equation, 3 plus 6x minus 2x squared is equal to the first part that you have done earlier, which is completed square, which is equals to 15 over 2 minus 2, x minus 3 over 2 square. Alright, now to find the inverse, we equate that equals to y. And then your aim is to write what is x from there. It means that you are going to shift those without x to the left side, those without x to the left side, and then when you have square, you are going to square root and so on. So you'll be having y minus 15 over 2 equals to negative 2, x minus 3 over 2 square. And then with this means that you're going to divide them by negative 2, so you'll be having 15 over 4 minus y over 2 is equals to x minus 3 over 2 square. Now with a square, you are going to give them a square root. You also have to think whether it is going to be on the right side or the left side. Because do you remember when you have a square, you are going to have positive negative of square root. But as you look into your graph is just on the left side. Right? It's just on the left side, means that the square root is just the negative one. The positive one would give you the right side of your quadratic graph. Okay, so you have to choose. It must be just the left side. When you give the square root, then you'll be having negative square root of 15 over 4 minus y over 2. That is equals to x minus 3 over 2. Therefore, your x is 3 over 2 minus square root of 15 over 4 minus y over 2. Rewriting this into a function form. So g inverse x. Remember, you have to write this in terms of x. Okay, not in terms of y. You have y over here, you have to convert it into x. So g inverse x would be 3 over 2 minus square root of 15 over 4 minus x over 2. Alright, and how do you get marked for this kind of question? You'll get the first mark when you sketch the correct graph with suitable labeling to distinguish the two curves. So it means that you label that this is gx and this is g inverse x. Yes, that is one mark, B1. When you label that it is reflected at y equals to x, that is second mark, B1. Next mark is when you attempt the correct process of finding the inverse of function, which means you equate it into y and then you start to move part by part to find out the x. That's the correct method, M1. And then your final answer specifically into this form or equivalent, that's the final mark. Alright, so that's it for paper October-November 2024.
Now this video doesn't cost you anything, but perhaps for its support, you can click the subscribe button.